Welcome to Healing Your Families. We're finishing this month talking about supporting family members with special needs. And I am so excited to have an outstanding expert with me today. This is Alicia Trautwein, and she is that autism advocate. And she's also the founder and editor of The Mom Kind, a publication I became aware of a few years ago. And I've always been impressed with the extensive information, valuable information they have for parents. If you're not already subscribed to it, I highly recommend you check it out. Alicia, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here.
And I heard you speak at the International Women's Day. Was so impressed with your story. Could you tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my name's Alicia and I run the website, themomkind.com. And I started that officially back in 2015, but branded it as The Mom Kind and what we kind of talk about nowadays in 2017. And I did that after we had gone through several different autism diagnoses. So our first diagnosis actually came with our son and as our youngest son. So we have 4 children, 3 of which are autistic. And with the oldest one not having the autism diagnosis, but it was our youngest who received their diagnosis first. And he was 23 months old when he first got his diagnosis. He had lost all form of speech at 19 months. So he had been speaking up until that point. And at 19 months, there was just a day he woke up and all of his words were gone. And we had to go through reteaching him language and all that. So by 23 months, we received his diagnosis. And then we had been our 2 older children that received the autism diagnosis are my older son and my youngest daughter. So we have the 2 youngest are boys, 2 oldest are girls. We had received the next diagnosis 6 weeks after. And that child was 8. And a year later, we received another diagnosis at 11. And so we had very much the early diagnosis to what traditionally is seen as a late diagnosis. And after our last child's autism diagnosis, during that last appointment, the doctor actually asked me if I had ever been tested for autism. And I had said no. And they just brought up the point that I had throughout different conversations with, our kids, had brought up that a lot of these things were the same things I experienced as a child as well. So a lot of things that were related to their autism was something that I directly did as well. And so after that, I started researching and going through the process of kind of learning what to look for myself outside of just a childhood diagnosis. And it took about 3 years to finally receive my autism diagnosis. And I was 33 when I received that diagnosis. So ever since then, we've been sharing our journey kind of along the way of each diagnosis and what it's like from each perspective, and hoping to be just a little bit of information out there for other parents.
I love that. That is so valuable. When parents first hear this diagnosis, they could be blindsided. They might not know what it means, what to do, how to support their child. First, I'd just like to ask the question, what did you notice in the difference? I've always heard that early intervention makes a huge difference. So
yes, it does.
Okay, compare when your 23-month-old was diagnosed and then either your 11-year-old or yourself at 33.
Yeah, so with our youngest, being diagnosed at 23 months, that's what you consider early intervention. So we were able to receive services, even though we weren't able to actually see the specialist for the diagnosis. We were because of his age and because of just the wait list, age made it less of a wait, but the wait list obviously still was a wait. It took us about 4 months to get his diagnosis, about 3.5, 4 months. And that is still considered a pretty quick turnaround. But during that time, we were able to be set up with the resources of some of our local organizations around here that work directly with kids completely free, that they came in and they did speech and language, speech therapy, occupational therapy. They did everything in home. So not only were they helping my child, but they were helping teach me how to do these things directly with them. So we had those resources from the get-go. Whereas with my older children, we received some of those resources because the next one up from him, the one that was diagnosed at 8, did have a speech impediment. It wasn't the loss of words like my youngest was, but we had speech problems. So we did receive some of those resources, but they were resources based solely on the speech impediment, not on the actual, language as a whole. It was a speech. And so we didn't have that early intervention. So when we started receiving intervention with the older ones, you could definitely see where we had been struggling. So, we didn't have an IEP in place for them. We didn't have a 504 in place because without a diagnosis, we couldn't get one. It was almost impossible because they would, we did eventually get a 504 in place when I was able to say, we obviously have anxiety. There's, anxiety disorder going on. Something's going on. We were able to get 504, but a 504 is only as good as a team willing to implement it because it's not as legally binding as an IEP. And for those learning about these terms, I'm sorry, I thought about that. IEP is an individual educational plan. A 504 is just basically a lesser version of that in a sense, but it's where the type of accommodations are put in place between the parents and staff that they come up with a plan to do it. So it can be just as beneficial, but it is dependent on, the school that your child's at. And so we had gotten a 504 in place right before the diagnosis, but even then we weren't getting where we needed. And because of that, my child definitely struggled. There was, emotional issues coming along with, just having not been diagnosed properly. And then also, being behind on certain things because, they were having so many outbursts and struggles that they couldn't keep up with the schoolwork too. And so there was this huge difference of when the types of help that were definitely beneficial that would have been great to put in place early on. Now, even though it wasn't in place, we were still able to provide supports and help them out by all means, but definitely easier for everyone involved, especially the child, to have that early intervention. And as an adult, I can actually say that there really aren't much resources when it comes to getting an adult diagnosis. For a lot of us, we've already experienced life. So, you take that into play as it is, and so a lot of us have already gone through therapy. We've already learned the coping skills, but the coping skills didn't work because we didn't know, what accommodations we needed to give ourselves with those coping skills. But that said, if have you ever gone through therapy, or maybe it's been a long time, you still can go see a therapist and that can still be very helpful, but it's not the same as, the type of intervention you would have had as a child.
Well, and didn't it help just knowing, sometimes just getting the diagnosis and going, oh, that's what it is. Was that helpful?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was, it was a lot to take in because I had 3 years of possibly knowing too. So it wasn't just like I had all these years of not knowing. I had 30 years of having no idea this is what was going on with me. I just thought I was an awkward, shy, goofy child. I didn't have a definition, and so I had, and I had my traumas because of not being diagnosed and being understood, but I had worked through those. But then I had that. Then I had 3 years of researching and getting to a point of like thinking that, this is probably it. This is it. But then without that confirmation, I still question myself because especially when I was gone there wasn't a lot of people, as many people able to share. Now we have TikTok, we have apps that are video related that people can share their stories vocally. But when it comes to actually writing stuff down, there's only so much you can get in writing sometimes. And I'm a blogger. I love to write. But that said, there's only so much you can get in, a conversation that you can't have from, seeing a person. And, so there really wasn't a lot out there saying, this is my diagnosis, how I felt. There was a lot of like adults with autism maybe sharing their story, but that didn't mean that they were diagnosed as adult, just meant that that's their story. And so I was always questioning, because until you have that diagnosis on paper, for a lot of us, it can be a back and forth. You still question it. And then finally, when I got it, it was like, it was a weight lifted off of me. But then I also had to go through kind of decompressing now all these 33 years of my life and looking at it in a new lens, because I was able to look backwards and see it from not just the perspective of an adult or the perspective as, someone, okay, this child was autistic and just not diagnosed. I also saw it from a parent's perspective. So I had all these different perspectives finally coming, full circle and looking backwards. And it was a lot to go through. I mean, and that's why we this show, my show Unmasking on our channel here, that, it's unmasking, we make this facade of how we present ourselves to the world. And a lot of that comes from just trying, maybe not even to be popular, but just to fit in enough to not get noticed.
And isn't that why girls are typically undiagnosed?
So yeah, that's a major reason. One of the major reasons why is that we mask our symptoms, especially when you're talking about girls, in the middle to high school range. Another big reason, though, is because the diagnostic criteria for autism has been ever changing. We have known about autism since, roughly the 1940s, but as a diagnosis, it was really primarily aimed towards looking at boys or those with significant impairments. So not saying that, anyone's impairments are any less than the others, because they all affect us individually just as hard, but for someone who is nonverbal, who is not able to care for themselves, they need 24-hour care, for those, that was where a lot of the diagnosis. So even if there was a girl diagnosed, it would typically be a girl that was in that more profound range of it, that they were nonverbal, they needed 24-hour care. Whereas anyone outside of that, you didn't have that. And it wasn't until, it was, I want to say 2013, when the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Criteria Manual, that we even started really understanding, taking the effort to look at girls and autism. There were girls diagnosed, don't get me wrong, but as a whole, we weren't looking at it from the perspective of how autism can affect girls differently. And even then, there were guys misdiagnosed as well, because, the previous manual, if you were a child growing up in, say, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you could not be diagnosed with both autism and ADHD. It was in the manual, you were not allowed to be diagnosed. And so what happened was, you hear about the whole, they pushed Adderall. What happened was, yes, it was a new medication. Of course, you hear about it because a lot, more people are getting diagnosed with something. Well, doctors are, looking at this from, okay, I have a child here in front of me that could be either one, but one is treatable with medicine and one's not.
So which one are they going to pick?
Yeah. And the parents, if the child's, reasonably, fine in classes, they're not, having issues in certain areas or whatever, they would just go with that because that was a quick fix. It was able, and not putting any doctor down, it's just how it was, it was a way to say, okay, well, I have a way to help you with that problem, so I'm going to help you with that problem. And so once we had the new manual out, then we could start seeing these dual diagnoses. And we've learned since then that while having ADHD does not mean you'll necessarily have autism, having autism does you are highly more likely to have ADHD along with your autism. And so we have all these people, from, all these decades now that are finally getting diagnoses because we just couldn't get them before.
And that's huge. I know we have, just in the years I taught, I started teaching in 1995, and just in the years that I taught, I retired in 2017. Just in those years, I saw huge strides, learning more. I'm afraid, I'll admit, I remember when originally they attributed it to poor mothering. They
Yes.
said it's a cold and responsive mother. Temple Grandin, I know that that's what her mother was told.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how painful that would be?
Yeah. And they call them refrigerator mothers because they believed it was because they just weren't paying enough attention to them. They weren't giving enough care. Thankfully, in the case of Temple Grandin's mother, I mean, thank God she saw, past that. It was like, no, that's not the case. And she is a doctor, has a doctor herself. So she, knew more and was able to help Temple. But, that there's so many mothers that did get that. And the other thing we know is that autism is genetic. While there may be other factors, there can be environmental and genetic factors. We only have one guarantee factor that we know of, and it's the Fragile X chromosome when it comes to genetics that can cause autism. And there's a few other markers that they're starting to notice now, but we're still in the process of learning where the markers are. So, but we know that a lot of it's genetic. Yeah, there are some cases where maybe it's environmental, whether it was something in the mother's pregnancy or, around them, but most of it's genetic, which means that they're getting it from somewhere. Where are these genes coming from? Chances are it's probably a lot of times the mom or the dad, but, especially for those of my generations, like, well, my mom does not have an autism diagnosis. She has a diagnosis of bipolar. Her mother, however, was diagnosed bipolar, but I look back on it now with what the knowledge we have nowadays is, and I can clearly tell you autistic without any doubt in my mind. And to the point that she wouldn't, and part of it, you'd probably understand, you'd remember this one, but she would not open her eyes in pictures, and she never smiled. So, and I know part of the picture, there used to be a lot of, the old time belief of, worrying about pictures taking your souls. But, even then the smile, like she never would. I mean, when you found a picture of her eyes were closed, there was no smile.
Wow.
And so and I think that she probably couldn't feign, but a lot of people, we can't fake a smile. I mean, girls do it a lot better than boys, but I'm sure you saw this on picture days with some of your students. You'd have these very grimace looking smiles because they're trying to force something when they're not genuinely happy, and trying to force it. It comes out very awkward.
Well, I think it's important. Well, part of the reason the diagnosis is so important is now you can learn how to help them, how to support them. And I had the quick question. So as soon as your son had that diagnosis, was it easy to get him on an IEP?
Oh, for him, it was seamless. Okay. And because we had gone through our state's program for helping children, whether they were autistic or any other developmental delay or special needs that they had, because we had gone through that, we had, so he had an IFP, an individual family plan, which falls in the same line as IEPs, just for when you're not in that K through 12 time period. So if you're in, your time beforehand, or I think preschool according to the school district, but so you're that time beforehand. So up until 3, we would have that. And then, or if say when you're homeschooling, you can switch to an individual service plan. But the individual family plan they had provided us was for his goals. They had put that in place. And for, not just his goals, but our goals as a family with him, things like that. And then they helped walk us right into the IEP process. We went in, before he even started preschool, we had gone in, we had, all this stuff in place. So we were able to develop a plan. Because he had a diagnosis beforehand, he was able to attend preschool for free. And he was, able to go to that. He was able to go to a special education preschool at that. So he was able to get the resources, the small class size he needed from the start.
But your older child, how was it for your older child who wasn't diagnosed until he was 11?
So the one that was 11, it was a little bit easier because I had already been through the fight with the one that was 8 at the diagnosis. But their diagnosis, it took me, I'd say about
even with the
3
diagnosis,
years.
You still had to fight to get them on an IEP.
Even with the diagnosis. So it took me another probably year after the diagnosis to get an IEP in place. And even then, thankfully, I had been put into contact with some different resources and and then we have what we call regional services here in the greater St. Louis area. And every state has some form of this in their area, but it's basically a care coordinator. So someone who comes out specifically that will help you find resources in your community, help you find support if you need it, all that. And so she had, sent me an organization's email list and found out she let me know that they were having a course. Pete Wright, he is the one who wrote the special education law book that you will see out and about. And it was his conference. And so I was able to go in there and find out everything I needed to know about, as much as he could within an 8-hour time period of everything that was my child's right. Because the schools, while teachers want to help, and a lot of times even principals will want to help, they don't always know, there's a combination of things where they don't always know all the resources available or what a child's rights are. And a lot of times that you have, some districts you may get really lucky and have a really easy time. But for ours at the time period, now it did get some things better, worse over time, but it was very hard to the point that it seemed like the administration, so the upper administration outside of the school, was what was hampering us from getting it. It's like they didn't want to do it. And I've heard that story so many times over, that you'll have one school district, they're very, they're advocates, they're doing great for the kids, they're talking, they're trying to give them support they need, they're learning actively, and others where it's, the administration or whatever, whatever part in the link that gets missed, and you had a problem. We had this horrible problem. So by time that I got my, one that was diagnosed at 11, I was feared that getting, my middle diagnosed, one that diagnosed autism, getting their IEP had been such a fight for me that by time the day that we got the IEP meeting set up, we'd gone through everything, and I went in there with, I did this because I wasn't doing this because anybody told me to do it this way. I did this simply because of how my brain works, because I know I'll forget stuff. I sat there and I wrote out all the things that we were requesting as accommodations. And I walked in there with it, and I had my little folder, and I had my Pete's book, because he had said, you'll bring the book with you so you can pull to a page. I had things bookmarked in there. So if they argue with something, I'd be like, well, no, according to, this subsection of this subsection, you have to do this. Yeah, I had that. But then I came in, I was like, oh, well, I actually have a sheet of the accommodations we were looking for. And they're like, oh, well, oh, great. Well, we'll make some copies of that. I said, no, I already made copies for everyone in attendance. And
you were prepared.
And when we left, the advocate that I had come with us to the meeting. So it was actually our child. We had gone through the one thing the school was able to put us in touch with prior to that was counseling. Our community does have counseling in place through, like, during the school day for kids, because it's often a hard time for kids to get those resources outside of school. So during the school day, it keeps them in the school and to get a therapist. And she came in with me after we left. She comes out, she was like, you were awesome. I just love that. You should have seen some of the looks on their faces. Like, she would catch things I couldn't, because we're, but so after that, like, going into the next meetings, I don't think anybody wanted to mess with me after that.
You had to establish your position. Yes.
Yeah. And so,
and that's what parents need to do.
But they do. But the scary part is that even when it comes to, like, there's certain things, like just as simple as getting an IEP meeting in place, getting the testing done for an IEP. I have heard so many parents, they've come to me. I've had people reach out to me and ask, and I've talked to parents that have said, I can't even get that. They said they're going to do it, but they never do it. And I said, because you have to put it in writing. When you put it in writing, you walk it in there, you hand it to them. You've already signed it. You tell them, I need that back. I need somebody to sign off that they've received it. And I need a copy of that signature on there and a copy of that given back to me. And I'm not leaving until after that's done.
Yes.
And then from there, they have 30 days, and not business days, calendar days to respond. And after that, he got a response within a week. It was already up and going, because no one told him that.
Yeah, IDEA was written to protect parents' rights, and most parents don't understand that.
Yeah, because we weren't taught it. Even though I had heard bits and pieces, I still didn't know much about it, and I have a father who is blind. I have a brother who's autistic, and so I heard about disability stuff. I knew certain things, But when it came to actually, what the actual rights and accommodations, I knew they had to accommodate, but I didn't know how to ask for those accommodations properly. I didn't have someone in my corner fighting for me saying, ask this way. And that's when when I hear teachers and other parents, other staff saying something to a parent saying, hey, do this, it makes me so happy because I know that not everyone's out doing that. And these parents just need help and they're not getting it with their kids. They if they're asking for help for their child, there's something going on, obviously. And by then, chances are the teacher's seen it too, and the teacher's been asking for help and not getting it either.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
that's why it's been a big thing of mine just to have these conversations, to let parents know things, because sometimes I will share something that I don't even realize in the moment is, I might think is small, but it's that tidbit of information, that tiny tidbit that parent needed to get the ball rolling.
Well, and I've seen from your post on LinkedIn, your blogs, you have a lot of excellent articles on these topics. So you're a valuable resource. Another thing, I think it's important when parents first hear this diagnosis is to understand that it's not all bad news. I recently read that a lot of the high-tech companies purposely are recruiting recruits with autism because of their great attention to detail.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that when we stop looking at things as a deficit and we start looking at it, well, okay, yeah, this person might not be able to do this, but they can really do this. And that should be how we look at everyone. Everyone has things that they can't do or can do. And when we start looking at it that way, like these tech companies that started figuring out, like, hey, these are the people that love these things and they love the detail. They see things we don't see. Why aren't we resourcing them? And they are doing great by that. And I hope more companies start doing that as years go by.
And that was my experience as a special ed teacher. Is I felt the most valuable thing I could teach my students is to recognize what their strengths were. And let's develop those. What you're good at, you'll be able to find a way to support yourself with that.
Yeah, and now with technology, I mean, it makes even those that were nonverbal. We now have more than just the PEX cards we used to. Now we have devices and apps. It's not even a separate device. It's just app for an iPhone or a tablet that you can use to then have an entire language device there for your child to be able to use and learn to use to be able to communicate their needs.
A long way from the days when we believed that it was the result of bad parenting and there was no hope for them. They would just have to be taken care of for the rest of their lives. It's wonderful that we know so much more. But I love what you're doing because we still there's still more knowledge that needs to be given, still more communication that's needed. So do you ever actually do you recommend that parents have an advocate when they go to an IEP meeting?
Yes.
Or go ahead and talk about
Oh yeah, no, you're fine. I'm like, yes, I do. Because even if the person isn't someone who is necessarily a trained advocate or someone going through the process. So like I've gone with these people. There are different advocacy groups around that will go into a meeting with you. But even if it's just a friend who you've talked to in advance and you've said, these are the things I'm looking for, having the support of someone in your corner when you're talking to what is essentially a bunch of strangers or people that you very briefly know, and them to support you and them to hear stuff, because you're also focused on advocating for your child. You might miss stuff. And so that's something that they can catch up on as well. And they'll say, hey, by the way, you didn't mention this, or, whatever case may be, or they may have another question as well. So even if you can't find someone to, that's an actual advocate, just having someone in the meeting with you is I would say everyone needs that support, because it's a lot, because it is something that I will say as a parent is the most brutal thing to go through an IEP meeting. It is hard because the entire time you are talking about what is wrong with your child, where they're missing out, what they're struggling with. It is hard. It is emotionally draining for the best of parents.
Yes.
And so having someone there to help you, it's key.
I've heard, and what I have seen is really effective, is begin the meeting? Could we go around the room and could everyone list a strength for this student, for my child, one of my child's strengths? And doing that sets a more positive tone for the meeting. But you're right, those meetings are grueling. I think sometimes parents are intimidated by school officials. And as a retired educator, I'll admit it, we can become rather arrogant.
And it's not even on purpose. It just happens sometimes because it's like, oh, I deal with this all day. And you think that you don't think about it from a new perspective. And that's why, I find it sometimes even more refreshing. I used to think I would go to older doctors and I would never want a doctor younger than me. And now I look at it from a different perspective of like, well, they just got out of college. They've been researching the latest thing. I want to hear their perspective.
Yeah.
Because they have a different perspective than we've had all along. And so, yeah, having that new perspective does help. Don't get me wrong. With age comes, some great world of life advice, but we're all learning.
Yes.
We're all learning every day.
Well, and we need to remember that the parent is the expert on the child. Maybe the professional has all these degrees and studies, but the parent understands their child better than anyone else in the room.
Exactly.
That's huge. Well, so how do people contact you? Alicia, you have so much to give parents who are struggling with this. How do I help my child with autism?
Yeah. So, of course, you can watch my show on the Women Network here. It's at Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Central. And then my website, themomkind.com. And then you can follow me on pretty much any social. It's at themomkind, with TikTok being the only exclusion. You have to type my name in there. But even then, all those links are on my website. So all you have to do is head to the Momkind, and you can even get in touch with me directly there.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom. I deeply appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
And to my viewers, join me again next week. We're starting a new theme. We're going to be addressing how we can protect our children from any kind of abuse. So remember to love yourself, love your families. Join me again next week at the same time. This is Emmylou Penrod at healingyourfamilies.com.